Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So, I just watched Wonka. Let's talk about it. So, Wonka is directed by Paul King, the director of the Paddington films. So you never should have doubted him. You never should have. I told you months back when I did a trailer reaction for this film that something was brewing, something was gonna be coming, something good, something exciting, because this is Paul King. Paul King gave us Paddington. So have faith, trust and believe he's gonna deliver magic. And magic is exactly what he gave us. Guys, Wonka is a good time. Guys, please. Christmas is just over a week away. Do yourself a favor and go see this film with your friends, with your family, even by yourself like I did, because it is just a magical time. You're gonna have the time of your life. I'm not even gonna delve into too much detail for this one because I just want you guys to experience it firsthand, because this is just the epitome of Paul King's British, deliciously fantastical magic that he delivers in Paddington. But this time around, his story is centered on this classic Roald Dahl character of Willy Wonka. And honestly, he knocked it out of the park. What can I say? But what's more surprising, at least to some of you guys, because you guys didn't believe, okay, I believed. I always believed. But what's more surprising is that not only did Paul King knock it out of the park, oh, get closer, but so did Timothée Chalamet. Put some respect on his name. Timothée Chalamet as Willy Wonka might just be I don't know if he's my favorite Willy Wonka. I said this in the trailer reaction, okay? I was never attached to Billy Wilder's Willy Wonka because I didn't really watch the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when I was younger. I checked it out way afterwards. The version of the character that I grew up with, okay, was Johnny Depp's version of the character. And listen, I'm not even gonna lie. I loved Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, I hear that the adults, okay, people who are older than me, don't like that film, and that's fine for them. That's fine for you guys. If you don't like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 2005, no problem. I have no qualms, okay? But let me just sit here and enjoy that film time and time again, because that's exactly what I did as a kid. The songs on that film are a bop. Tim Burton's aesthetics fit the story perfectly. It gave it that kind of creepy, weird angle that I've always associated Willy Wonka with since. So it was just perfect to me. Danny Elfman's score, I mean, come on, it was just the perfect package, okay? So if you grew up with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. I never felt like I needed to visit the old version from the 70s. No disrespect to Billy Wilder, R.I.P., but that was not my Willy Wonka. But now, thankfully, I have a new Willy Wonka to get excited about, because Timothée Chalamet absolutely ate. He knocked it out of the park, and I couldn't be happier to report this news to you all. So clearly I had a fun time with this film, but before we dive into some more of my thoughts, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on notifications so that you can be told when I upload next, especially because the Genie Awards are coming just around the corner. So you want to make sure that you have your notifications on so that you're told when the premiere drops, because I will be joining you guys live at the premiere of the video on YouTube at the chat. But okay, so back to Willy Wonka. So this film is of course centered on the titular character portrayed by Timothée Chalamet, and here he is this younger version of the character who hasn't got his factory just yet. He's just starting out, but he does have these crazy wild inventions, and he does have the ability to create this magical chocolate that blows people's minds. And so with that skill set and experience, he wants to set out into the world and make something big of himself, especially because his mother inspired him as he grew up eating her chocolates, where they would combine together the bits and bobs that they got throughout the year, and she would make one one single magical chocolate bar for him for his birthday. So chocolate is, you know, a creative expression for Willy Wonka, but it's also a close connection and tie to his mother. And I feel like that's a really great emotional arc to kind of anchor this character with. It's very different to the backstory that we got in the 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where Willy Wonka, I guess, became a chocolatier to spite his dentist father. Like I'll always remember that scene where he's sitting on the chair and his dad is looking at his teeth and his dad's like, no cavities. You have no cavities somehow, even though you own a chocolate factory. Oh my god, that film was crazy and wild. Anyways, but I do think this was a far more touching and heartwarming backstory to give the character, and it just helped to motivate and drive him to become a chocolatier, a famous chocolatier in this London town. And speaking of London town, without giving away too many spoilers for the film, because I want you guys to watch it, I want you guys to experience it, okay? But one of the first things that happens when he does arrive in London town, that's never really expressly called London town, I don't think, is that he loses all of his money. And honestly, that's so real. Honestly, that's so real. Like, you just have this song where he's just walking the streets and he's like, I've got a pocket full of 13 tuppence or whatever, and every single time he opens his mouth, someone takes his money from him, whether it be the shoe shiners, whether it be people selling him stuff that he doesn't want, but he happens to have his hand open. That to me was so real as a Londoner. I felt that to the core of my soul. So that was a great opening for the film. Now, despite the fact that Wonka arrives at this establishment with a pocket full of dreams, his hopes and dreams are quickly crushed, as many of ours are when we arrive in London. His hopes and dreams are quickly crushed as he realizes that he will have to come up against a lot more evil than he may have suspected. One of these groups being these three major chocolatiers in town who basically have a monopoly on all things chocolate, and they don't want Wonka getting his tiny little mitts onto their profits, and so they're doing whatever they can to stop him in his path, especially after he is able to give out samples of his chocolates to an audience, and they get a little taste and they realize, this guy's actually good at what he does, and so they get real threatened and decide to stop him by any means necessary from selling his chocolate and putting them out of business. And these three villains are portrayed by Patterson Joseph, Matt Lucas, and Matthew Bainton, and they are so phenomenal because they have the perfect amount of wackiness and camp to them, but they also have like that genuine undercurrent of like sinisterness. Like, these guys are evil. These guys are evil and hateful. Like, why are you hating on him so much? But yeah, they were so entertaining to watch, especially Patterson Joseph, who was the head sort of villain of the group. He was just deliciously and delectably evil in his role, and they had several, you know, musical sequences as well, because this film is a musical. You wouldn't know it from the promotion, but it is a musical. So I just loved that. It just made it feel like so much more of a classic family film, which we get very few and far between these days. I mean, actually, recently, the only universally beloved family films that we have been getting have been from Paul King. They've been the Paddington films. So we've just added this film to his roster, and these evil chocolatiers have also been added to Paul King's roster of wacky, fantastical villains that was actually started off by Nicole Kidman in the first Paddington film. But unfortunately, Willy Wonka's misfortunes don't just end there. There are other people out to get him. And this other such person owns an inn, and Willy is influenced. He is drawn into becoming a tenant at this inn, but unfortunately he actually can't afford to stay there, and he's misled into thinking that he can just stay there for free until he gets himself, you know, back on track. But unfortunately he doesn't read the fine print. You should always read the fine print, guys. He doesn't read the fine print, although not for lack of trying, but it turns out he actually can't read at all, and so he ends up stuck in that inn, forced to work for the rest of his days. But because he is a genius inventor, he is able to get back out there and sell his chocolate to the world, but not without the help of his trusty sidekick Noodle, who is portrayed by the adorable and amazing Kayla Lane. She was brilliant in this film. I just loved it. Well, I mean, first of all, you guys know why you guys know why I got excited to see this character first and foremost. It's because she's a little black girl. Oh my god. She's a little black girl in a fantasy film like this, and honestly, it just makes me so happy to be alive in this day and age, even though a lot of people hate to see it, but I love to see it, guys. And I think Kayla Lane was so wonderful in this role. She had such a touching story herself, as it was really great to see her be a co-lead in this film. But Noodle is an amazing character in her own right, and her and Willy Wonka get up to all sorts of shenanigans to make sure that the world knows about his incredible chocolate. So they had phenomenal chemistry together. I really bought into their friendship, especially because they both learned so much from one another. But speaking of great chemistry all around, this entire cast is brilliant. This entire cast was absolutely phenomenal. I had the biggest smile on my face, guys, the whole time. The villains are amazing together. They're so hilarious. And one of them, as I mentioned, is portrayed by Matthew Bainton, which is funny to me because he is, of course, part of the Horrible Histories group. And that's no accident, because the co-writer of this film is Simon Farnaby. He's also a part of that group. And for those of you who don't know, they're also in the UK version of the series Ghosts, which is the original version and the superior one, obviously. And so I would highly recommend you check out BBC's Ghosts if you haven't already. But yeah, you can find more of the Horrible Histories crew there as well. But the whole cast in Wonka is absolutely phenomenal, from the villains to the heroes, and we even get more of the heroes team, who are in unfortunate circumstances when we meet them, very similar to that of Willy Wonka's, which again I won't spoil, but they come together, you know, and start working as a team to help Wonka out and also to help themselves, and they just make for a really great pack. And then of course we have the addition of the iconic Oompa Loompa that here is portrayed by Hugh Grant, who, you know, recently he's been talking out of his neck about how horrible it was being an Oompa Loompa and whatever, but I'm just gonna ignore him, okay, because he looked adorable. He looked adorable. He did a great job, and I have to say, the CG in this film was very, very well done. That Oompa Loompa could have looked like a horror story. That Oompa Loompa could have looked horrific, but I think the CG was done very, very well. It wasn't perfect. There was still the uncanny valley feeling, especially if we spent too much time with Hugh Grant's Oompa Loompa. But I do think for the most part that his efforts working in mocap were very worth it, because he made for a very adorable and grumpy, frumpy Oompa Loompa that was a great addition to this already great cast. And speaking of CGI and world building, I mean, this is something that Paul King has done brilliantly in the past with the Paddington films, so it should be no surprise that he excels in it here as well. He has created this very magical, fantastical version of London that is so appealing and just draws you in, especially now, especially during the holiday period where it's cold and miserable and it gets dark too soon. I'm telling you, if you just step into the cinema and watch Wonka, you'll have the time of your life, I promise. But yeah, I think the world building that he does here is so good. He just has a way of, you know, taking this London or British architecture and just kind of elevating it and making it seem otherworldly, which is really cool. He was the perfect guy for this film. That's crazy. I mean, if you want like a weirder, edgier, kind of sus version of a Roald Dahl novel, then of course you're gonna go to Tim Burton. But Paul King's version is just so wholesome, and it's so inviting and welcoming, and again, family friendly. And I think that was a great route to take, especially because we've already gotten 2 other iterations of this character. And another thing that made it feel very wholesome and welcoming was the music, because it is a musical, at least for the first half of the film, and then they kind of forget that it's a musical. Like the songs kind of stop, like 2/3 of the way in, the songs kind of, you know, move into the distance. But for a while there, it was a really fun musical, and everyone commits. Like I said, Timmy was doing what needed to be done. And I remember when the trailers came out, people were like, oh, he just doesn't have the aura, he doesn't have the vibe. And I said in my trailer reaction, guys, like, just give him the chance to show you. Like, I think he's cooking. Yes, some of the line readings were a little bit off, especially the we're making chocolate, of course. Like that line that we got in the trailer was still odd in the film itself. And yes, it was present in the film. But still, I think for the most part, like 95% of the time, he was super convincing and super endearing as the character. And he absolutely delivered on those musical numbers, which was great to see. I love it when they commit. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't be shy. Commit to this. You're getting paid millions. Commit to this as an actor. And then look how it turned out. He got nominated for a Golden Globe. You see? This is why you listen to me. But not only were the musical performances and the music itself really fun, but so were the set pieces. I love it when films commit to giving us like gorgeous set pieces for a musical performance. I think it just makes it feel even more fantastical. And one thing that this film actually reminded me of was a Netflix film from a few years back called Jingle Jangle, which also featured Keegan-Michael Key. But yes, this was definitely giving me Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Story vibe. For those of you who haven't seen the film, I think the term was like Afro-Victorian or Afro-punk Victorian, something along those lines. But it was essentially a Christmas movie that Netflix came out with a couple of years back. And this would be the Christmas movie that I would recommend hands down if you're looking for a new one to watch. It's just so wholesome. It's so warm, very, very well produced as well. Just like with Wonka, they have these gorgeous sets. They make it feel so magical and fantastical. They really go there when it comes to their, you know, imaginations. And again, I think that sprinkling of magic makes all the difference, especially this time of year when otherwise it's very dark and dreary and cold. Now, if I did have any critiques for Wonka, it would probably be that the final act, the first part of the final act, kind of lost me for just a little bit. You know, something happens, you know, the hero is in peril, and I don't know, I feel like that part just kind of, like I said, lost me a little bit. I kind of started drifting away just a little bit in that part, whereas in the first two acts, like, I was there. My focus and attention were 100% on the film, and I was riveted throughout. But yeah, it did lose me a little bit in the final act. The momentum kind of dropped, and like I said, it doesn't help that the music also stopped. But it more than makes up for it with this really beautiful happily ever after ending, so I wasn't left with a sour taste in my mouth. So listen guys, all in all I have to say is I was right. All I have to say is I was kind of right about Wonka, because it was just as magical and dreamy and welcoming as I thought it would be from the trailer. Hopefully this film does well and we can see a follow-up, especially if it's directed by Paul King and co-written again by Simon Farnaby, who makes an appearance in this film, by the way, because they are clearly an iconic duo. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to be giving Wonka an 8 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Wonka, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of the film if you've seen it down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up, including the Genie Awards. I'm really excited, can you tell? But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.